in relationships, that's where it's a mutual effort, right? I think as a man there, it's like understand the importance of that rebellion, but also understand that where that rebellion is going towards. It's not rebellion for the sake of rebellion, you know. It's to create a strength that will last hopefully generations, right? Because then that's passed on as well. Um, and then, but also being careful, like where's that energy moving towards, right? I give this example of a man learning to exercise his boundaries, and that maybe he hasn't before been a very yes man person his whole life. As you're learning to do that, don't practice on your girlfriend. Don't practice on your wife. um it's better. So again, this is about context, right? Like
Yeah, fully.
choosing to practice choosing to practice that in not in your closest circles,
Mm,
so that when you develop that skill and you can bring that back into your closest circles,
mm,
it can be
mm,
uh less explosive,
mm.
less destructive, and hopefully more balanced, right? Coming from a place of calm.
Yeah.
I know that was a lot.
No,
I'm
I'm
curious what
flowing
that
with you. Yeah.
I'm curious what that yeah, what that brought up for you.
Yeah. I was like, "Whew, you hit it." Yes. Like we're flowing. Like we have, I feel like we're like two perspectives or experiences. And like I would love to like kind of merge how that
Mhm.
comes together from our experiences individually, but also like serving our communities. Because like as you're talking, what I heard is that like for men or Asian men, it's like really important to be very grounded in your why and who you are and your mission.
Yes.
And you to also talk about like there's a jump from like boyhood to manhood, right? And kind of being able to come back to that why and who you are, but there's not a lot of guidance.
Hmm.
So it like
Yeah.
really hit me because I use the chakras or the energy centers in the body, and I've seen this natural formula of the body, which is basically when you're rooted in who you are, your ancestors, you feel inherently worthy of belonging and care and nurture and safety and love unconditionally.
Hmm.
You have a tribe, a community. And then in our sexual energy reproductive center, this is our right to our emotions to feel, our right to our desires to play, to
Yeah.
pleasure. And it's important to have energetic boundaries and also not be moved by guilt. And the first one, the root, is blocked by fear and scarcity. So you can
Hmm.
see how our societies that are hyper masculine and patriarchal and empire and colonization, we feel unrooted. We feel like we don't have an unconditional right to safety and care and belonging.
Hmm.
Where our immigrant families are constantly in survival mode or were. And so, as the next generation, we're seeing that modeled in the way that they live, in the way that they feel in their bodies, in the way that they connect to their emotions. And so, I guess I see this a lot in my work, which is individually connecting to who you are and your why and your joy and your fulfillment. And naturally, in the more yang masculine gut, your right to take action.
That's
This
right.
develops from the ages of 14 to 21,
Hmm.
right? And the sexual reproductive 7 to 14,
Hmm.
right? And then root 0 to 7. So if you think about this is your right to take action, your willpower, your personal confidence, and also manifesting and dreaming and visioning and putting that into action. But if you think about what were we doing from the ages of 14 to 21? We were making the transition from high school and for some of us a lot of pressure to go to college.
Hmm.
What did college teach us? To conform, to learn systems so that you can get a good job and have a good
Yeah.
life. Very intellectual.
Hmm.
Were we really taught, right? Go into finance, go into business, get whatever makes the most money, right? But were we truly taught to root into who we are and to trust that and what really fulfills us and to feed into that? And so I remember, I think this topic naturally came up around like the men in our lives when I recently connected with a lot of different sisters.
Hmm.
And one of my friends was like, there's this book about how like the men in our life sometimes, are stuck in boyhood because of whatever attachment styles they were modeled from their parents. And they did not receive that transfer, that guidance from elders in their families or communities on how to make that transition from boyhood to manhood. And I'm sure for women as well, or, just people, like
Sure.
there's just a gap in that guidance. So I just wanted to share that. And then also, I've seen how it can work too. And we can also talk more about that in intimate partner relationships, how to have those conversations around your individual mission and who you are and your why and what fulfills you, and then your shared mission and who you are and your why, what fulfills you, and coming back to that. And also having the ability and the practices, like you said, when you see the emotional leakages, right? If you're a people pleaser, for example, not having boundaries, and then that resentment and that rage and that anger, and then how it gets projected on, right? We
Yeah.
hurt the people that we love the most because we feel safe with them.
Hmm.
But that's not fair, right? Because they're the ones that are feeding most into us in our relationship. So I'm going to stop there because I know that was a lot, but yeah, I hope that was helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's been the barometer for me,
Yeah.
right? Like in developing strength, in developing like self-defined fortitude and resilience, and asking like who is this ultimately serving? Ideally it serves me first and the people around me and my community, that there's a ripple effect. I think it's important to have that, like life is a constantly evolving thing, right? Something that may have worked in one phase of life, doesn't work for the next. So yeah, it's a tricky process, because sometimes like the process can be, I'm talking about like the development of masculinity, right? Sometimes the process is just important as the result. Having having men go through that trial and fight for something. Something I actually see a lot in my men's groups is that,
Mhm.
and this kind of
Yeah.
sucks to say in a
Maybe
way.
you want to talk about like
Yeah,
what is your men's
yeah,
groups and like, yeah, or you can just flow into it and then naturally we can go there. Yeah.
sure, yeah. So I've been doing Asian men's groups for 3 years now, but specifically with the nonprofit organization I'm working with now, Asian Mental Health Project. It's been a year of officially doing this, and let
Yeah.
me see. What was my
Congratulations. It's
Thank
like
you.
such an important resource. I've been looking for like
Oh,
years
good.
as I'm doing this work. Like, where are the resources at for Asian men, you know?
Yeah, it's really a privilege, because my good friend from college actually was the one that founded it, and I remember just hitting out one day and being like, hey, there's no men's group. Will you let me do this for you? And she was like, sure, let's set you up and everything. So it's pretty wild. I think probably one of the most gratifying things from the men's group is seeing the men create real connections with each other
Mm,
that extend outside of the group. So recently, there are
mm.
two of them in that were there in the same group. I'm familiar with both of them, but I was like trying to introduce them to each other, and they both looked at me like, dude, we've been friends for like half a year now. Like we've gone to each other's birthday parties, like up in the Bay Area. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, like that kind of thing where, um, I also see a lot where women are like, oh my god, my man needs this, you know he needs to go now. And I think maybe for certain relationship dynamics that works, where there's a lot of trust with their partner, and they're like, all right, if you say so, I'll go. But I also see sometimes that actually creates resistance, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
like the partner is like, I told you, here's the thing that you can go to finally fucking fix yourself, right? Which doesn't
That
always.
amplifies the teenager even more and the rebellion,
Exactly.
like, no.
Exactly. So,
Mm,
but what I have seen work is when partners present their man just with the information. They're
mm,
like, hey, here's something I saw. Here's the information. If you ever feel like
mm,
it's going to benefit you,
mm,
here it is. So from what I've seen from the men's side, um, there's like almost like quiet acceptance and encouragement that helps a lot, right? It's like, I know you're growing. I know you're fighting through a lot right now. I know you're trying to figure out a lot right now. Um, I don't have the answer, but just know that I will be here for you throughout. You know, um, of course, we all have limited capacity as well, and sometimes the being there can look different, right? Sometimes it's active listening. Sometimes that partner may not have the emotional capacity, right? And it's simply small acts of service, like all the many ways there's to show love. But from what I hear from men, it's like that kind of love that it's almost like a polarity thing. Like,
Mm.
I think when we as men we receive that level of acceptance and love, like, I believe in you so much,
Mm.
I'm gonna be here. I know you're gonna
Mm.
fuck up. I know it's not gonna be perfect. I'm still gonna be here. Um,
Mm.
Obviously not in all cases, but I will say a lot of the men that come to my space, like, they're already in therapy.
Mm.
A lot of them work with coaches as well, so it becomes this supplementary space on top of like the one-on-one work that they're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
almost like practice the skills that they're learning in coaching
Yeah, they're
and therapy.
superstars.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's really incredible, honestly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
So,
I'd say, like, for
mm,
like the men that are really good intentioned and they want to change and they want to heal, they want to fight, they want to protect. Um, like, once you give that kind of love to them, obviously every man's different, but from what I see, when they
mm-hmm.
receive that love, it's just even more of a push. It's like,
Mm.
wow, what did I do to deserve this kind of loyalty, deserve this kind of love? I think that's the ideal case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, varying levels of trauma responses in everyone. But to me, that's the peak of the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where there,
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking about masculine, feminine polarity, it's like when the
Mm-hmm.
feminine to me, in my
Mm-hmm.
experience, when the
Yeah, yeah,
feminine brings that just acceptance, and it just
yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
washes over you, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's the most beautiful healing, but also, more importantly, I think, for the result, uh inspiring, like galvanizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, holy fuck, I have all this love in my corner. How could I not use this to be all that I am, all that I was meant to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I think of, the men's group as a place to cultivate that, as well, um, where I think where it subverts a lot of maybe what we see traditionally from masculine socializing, is that, at least in the way I facilitate, it's always acceptance first. It's always meeting them exactly where they're at, and trust me, there's gonna be a time where I push people too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, is that how you want to be? What kind of man do you want to be? Like, bring it back to self-definition, because I think the values that a man chooses for himself are the most sustainable, are the most lasting, and
Mm-hmm.
by then, and in effect, the most permanent as well. So that takes patience as well. Like, sure, it's easy, and I've had people tell me, like, oh, Leo, the reason your men's group is different, because a lot of the different men's groups I go into, people, they're coaches, they're gurus, they're all this, they're just preaching at us the whole time. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, here's an answer.
And
You're
that's
not
very
you're
young
not being
masculine energy, right?
It
Like
is.
I'm the, like tell you what to do. Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I and that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think
Mm-hmm.
about mental health and wellness as this ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the people that go to those kind of coaches and it works for them, incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Do your thing. It's working for your life. It's helping you towards fulfillment. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
also seeing that, not all men jive well with that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes before we get into, like, all right, what are we doing? What are we building? Just
Mm-hmm.
that brief pause to look at them and say, yo, I see you. Where you at right now? Is it anger? Is it jealousy? You can talk to me. I felt that shit. I felt that shit too. And sometimes even just in that talking, there's an unraveling of like, oh wow, I can't get myself to do this because I don't know, I didn't get a certain acknowledgement from my father growing up, right? Like
Mm,
I'm a firm believer in like people's inner wisdom, right?
mm,
And as a and that's the thing, I'm not a mental health professional. Should have put that disclaimer up front. I don't even call myself a coach per se. Call myself a facilitator because that's where I see that it really works. It really works for some men, right? It's like just believing that people already know what they want.
mm,
They already know what they want. They actually know how to do it already.
mhm,
But
mhm.
there's something within that's that's a blockage, and sometimes they even already know, have like a bit of a inkling of
Mm,
what that is, and
mm.
sometimes it just takes a bit more listening, a bit more
Yeah. So it's not,
pressuring, like the right question
mm.
placed somewhere for something to change. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And it sounds like just your energy of acceptance, and it sounds like root energy to be like you're going to be unconditionally loved no matter what, and I see you.
Yeah.
And to be able to open up that second energy center. I'm just using the frameworks that I like to
Hmm.
use around the energy, but like
Sure.
that yin feminine that's out of balance in our society. And like when you feel safe and seen, you can open up that yin feminine, the emotions and all of that stuff.